Rising from the dense jungles of Central America, the towering Mayan pyramids stand as silent witnesses to a civilization that mastered architecture, astronomy, and mysteries beyond our wildest imagination. Picture this: an ancient city swallowed by vines, its stone steps whispering secrets of a people who vanished without a trace. What if I told you these pyramids hold clues to prophecies, advanced mathematics, and even celestial alignments so precise they baffle modern scientists? Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to reveal 30 astonishing facts about Mayan pyramids, each one more mind-bending than the last. Imagine standing at the base of El Castillo in Chichen Itza, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down as the sun casts shadows that slither like serpents down the staircase. The Maya didn't just build pyramids, they encoded their understanding of the cosmos into every stone. Some align with planetary movements with pinpoint accuracy, while others hide chambers filled with artifacts that rewrite history. How did a civilization without modern tools achieve such precision? And why did they abandon these monumental cities, leaving their treasures to the jungle? The answers lie in the shadows of these structures, waiting to be uncovered. This isn't just a journey through ruins, it's a plunge into a world where mathematics met mythology, where kings communed with gods, and where the very fabric of time was woven into architecture. By the end of this video, you'll see these pyramids not as lifeless stones but as living puzzles, each piece revealing a truth about humanity's past. So lean in close, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient civilizations. The adventure begins now. Deep in the heart of Guatemala's untamed jungle lies a secret so colossal, it remained hidden for centuries: the Great Pyramid of El Mirador. This towering giant isn't just another ruin, it's a staggering testament to Mayan ambition, dwarfing even Egypt's pyramids in sheer volume. Picture a structure so vast, its base covers nearly the same area as 25 Olympic swimming pools, rising over 200 feet into the sky like a stone mountain crafted by human hands. What makes El Mirador truly astonishing isn't just its size, it's the sheer audacity of its construction. Built around 2,000 years ago without metal tools, wheels, or beasts of burden, the Maya hauled millions of tons of limestone through dense, predator-filled jungles. Each block was painstakingly shaped and stacked with such precision that the pyramid still stands today, defying earthquakes and relentless tropical storms. But here's the twist: this architectural marvel was more than just a monument. Archaeologists believe El Mirador served as the beating heart of a sprawling metropolis, home to tens of thousands at its peak. Its terraces likely hosted royal ceremonies where priests decoded celestial omens, while hidden chambers beneath its stairs may still hold untold treasures. The pyramid's alignment with solstice sunrises suggests the Maya didn't just build for glory. They engineered a sacred calendar in stone, merging earth and sky in one breathtaking vision. And yet, the most haunting question remains: how did a civilization without modern technology achieve such a feat? The answer lies in the pyramid's very design: secret lime plaster formulas that hardened like concrete, intricate drainage systems to withstand torrential rains, and ramps so cleverly engineered they turned back-breaking labor into a symphony of coordinated effort. El Mirador isn't just a relic of the past, it's a silent lesson in what humans can achieve when knowledge, faith, and determination converge. The Maya didn't just build pyramids, they turned stone into celestial calendars. Take Chichen Itza's El Castillo, where every step whispers the secrets of the cosmos. Twice a year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, a phenomenon unfolds that proves the Maya's mastery of astronomy. As the sun sets, the pyramid's terraces cast triangular shadows down the northern staircase, merging with stone serpent heads at the base to create the illusion of a giant snake slithering from the heavens to the earth. This isn't accidental artistry, it's precise celestial engineering. The serpent, a sacred symbol of the feathered god Kukulkan, wasn't chosen at random. To the Maya, this descent represented the deity's annual return to bless the land, linking agricultural cycles with cosmic events. But the magic doesn't stop there. The pyramid boasts 91 steps on each of its 4 sides, totaling 364. Add the shared platform at the top, and you have 365, a perfect solar year carved in stone. Even more astonishing, the structure aligns perfectly with Venus's 8-year cycle, which the Maya tracked meticulously for rituals and warfare. Modern laser scans reveal even deeper genius. The pyramid's acoustics were designed so precisely that a clap at its base echoes as a chirping Quetzal bird, a sound they associated with divine messages. How did architects achieve such perfection without modern instruments? They likely used long observation tunnels and shadow-casting devices, turning patience into a science. These weren't just builders, they were sky-watching mathematicians who encoded their universe's rhythm into architecture, and El Castillo is just one example. Across Mayan cities, pyramids align with solstice sunrises, lunar standstills, and even the Milky Way's dark rift, a gateway they believed led to the underworld. At Uxmal, the governor's pyramid marks Venus's southernmost rise, while Tikal's temples frame the equinox sun between towering rooftops. Each alignment served a dual purpose, practical timekeeping and sacred theater, proving the Maya saw no divide between science and spirituality. What modern astronomers achieve with satellites, the Maya accomplished with shadows and stones. Their pyramids weren't static monuments but dynamic instruments, stone observatories that breathed with the sky's movements. When you stand before El Castillo during an equinox, you're not just witnessing an ancient light show. You're seeing a civilization's entire world, you crystallized in a single, shimmering moment of alignment. Beneath the weathered stone of Palenque's Temple of the Inscriptions lies a labyrinth of secrets modern archaeologists are only beginning to unravel. This pyramid isn't just a monument, it's a multi-layered puzzle with hidden chambers and tunnels that rewrite our understanding of Mayan burial practices. In the late 1950s, explorer Alberto Roslulia made a chilling discovery. Beneath the temple floor, a narrow staircase descended into pitch-black darkness, sealed for over 12 centuries. What he found at the bottom would send shockwaves through the archaeological world. A vaulted crypt housing the sarcophagus of Pakal the Great, one of the most revered Mayan kings. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings depicting Pakal's cosmic journey, while his jade-adorned remains hinted at rituals far more elaborate than scholars had imagined. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Recent laser scans reveal this chamber isn't the end of the story. Hidden passageways branch off like veins beneath the pyramid, some leading to undiscovered rooms that may contain royal artifacts or even the tombs of Pakal's queens. The Maya engineered these spaces with ingenious precision. Narrow ventilation shafts allowed air to circulate, preserving delicate murals, while false doors and movable walls suggest they anticipated tomb raiders. Some tunnels align with celestial events during the winter solstice. Sunlight pierces through specific openings to illuminate the burial chamber, turning architecture into a sacred timepiece. And Palenque isn't alone. Beneath Tikal's temple of the giant jaguar, ground-penetrating radar has detected hollow spaces that could hold untouched offerings, from obsidian mirrors used in divination to ceremonial caches of cocoa beans and jade. What treasures might still lie concealed? One theory suggests these chambers served as pathways to Xibalba, the Mayan underworld where rulers communed with ancestors through hallucinogenic rituals. Others believe they're physical archives, storing bark paper codices that survived Spanish burnings. Every new discovery peels back another layer, proving these pyramids weren't just tombs, they were multidimensional bridges between earth and eternity, where kings became gods and stone held the whispers of the divine. The vibrant cities of the Maya weren't just centers of learning and artistry, they were also stages for rituals so intense they'd make modern spines shiver. At the summit of pyramids like Tikal's Temple of the Great Jaguar, priests performed ceremonies where human sacrifice wasn't just an act of violence, but a sacred dialogue with the gods. Picture this: a captive warrior, often from rival city-states, led up steep steps under the watch of thousands, his fate sealed not by cruelty, but by a belief that his blood would nourish the cosmos itself. The altars where these rituals unfolded were no ordinary slabs of stone. Carved with intricate glyphs depicting serpents and deities, they served as conduits between worlds. When a ruler or priest drew blood, whether from their own tongues using stingray spines or through the heart extraction of a sacrificial victim, they believed it released Ciechulul, the life force that sustained the gods. This wasn't mere superstition, it was a contractual obligation. The Maya saw the universe as fragile, requiring regular offerings to prevent droughts, famine, or the collapse of the world itself. Archaeological evidence paints a vivid picture. At Chichen Itza's sacred cenote, divers recovered golden artifacts alongside the bones of children and warriors, offerings tossed into the watery abyss to appease Chak, the rain god. In Kapan, altars bear grooves designed to channel blood into ceremonial vessels, while murals at Bonampak depict captives bleeding onto bark paper, later burned to send smoke signals to the heavens. Yet there's a chilling nuance here: victims weren't always unwilling. Some scholars argue certain sacrifices volunteered, believing death in service to the gods granted them honor or even divinity. Skulls from Palenque show signs of healing from previous ritual bloodletting, suggesting repeated participation. The Maya even had a god of suicide, Ixtab, depicted as a corpse dangling from the heavens, reinforcing that sacrifice wasn't just accepted, it was glorified. These pyramids doubled as spiritual power plants, where the line between life and death blurred. Every drop of blood spilled on their summits was a calculated exchange, mortals suffering for cosmic balance. Far from barbaric, these rituals reveal a civilization so deeply intertwined with the divine. They saw themselves as custodians of existence itself, willing to pay the ultimate price to keep the stars in motion. Clap your hands at the base of Chichen Itza's pyramid, and something extraordinary happens. The echo doesn't sound human at all. Instead, it transforms into the high-pitched chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, a creature revered by the Maya as a messenger between worlds. This isn't just a quirky acoustic accident, it's evidence of a civilization that mastered sound as deliberately as they mapped the stars. The pyramid staircase acts like a massive sound filter, with each step reflecting and distorting noise in precise ways. When researchers analyzed the effect, they found the echoes match the Quetzal's call down to the frequency, a feat that would challenge modern engineers even with digital tools. The secret lies in the pyramid's geometry. The steep, narrow steps create a series of rapid sound reflections, while the flat terraces between them act as sonic baffles. Together, they sculpt ordinary noise into something magical. But why go to such lengths? For the Maya, sound wasn't just vibration, it was a sacred force. Priests used conch shell trumpets to open rituals, and chants were believed to carry prayers directly to the gods. The Quetzal's echo may have served as divine confirmation that ceremonies were heard in the heavens. Other pyramids amplify this acoustic genius. At Uxmal, whispers at one end of the governor's palace can be heard clearly 150 feet away, thanks to parabolic arches that focus sound waves. In Mayapan, a clap near certain structures produces multiple delayed echoes, creating a chorus effect that mimics rainfall, a clever nod to Chak, the rain deity. Even more astonishing, some researchers suggest the Maya used these properties for practical purposes, like projecting a ruler's voice across crowded plazas without shouting. Modern attempts to replicate these effects reveal their sophistication. When a team built scale models of Kukulkan's pyramid, they found the chirping echo only occurs at specific angles and distances. The Maya likely discovered these principles through trial and error over generations, turning intuition into precision. It's a reminder that their pyramids weren't just silent monuments, they were alive with sound, engineered to sing, whisper, and bridge the gap between Earth and the unseen. Climbing the steps of a Mayan pyramid wasn't just a physical journey, it was a symbolic ascent through time itself. Take El Castillo at Chichen Itza, where each of its 4 staircases contains exactly 91 steps. Add the shared platform at the summit, and you arrive at the number 365, mirroring the days in a solar year. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a deliberate fusion of architecture and cosmology, turning stone into a sacred calendar. Every step represented a single day, and climbing them became a ritual reenactment of the sun's annual journey across the sky. But the symbolism runs deeper. The pyramid's 9 terraces divide the steps into segments, echoing the 9 levels of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld. Priests ascending these stairs weren't merely climbing, they were traversing the layers of existence, moving from the earthly realm toward the celestial. At the summit, rituals performed during solstices or equinoxes transformed the pyramid into a conduit between mortal and divine, where human voices could reach the gods. The steps themselves acted as a spiritual ladder, each one a marker of time's passage and a testament to the Maya's obsession with cyclical renewal. Other pyramids refine this concept further. At Tikal's Temple of the Masks, the steps are deliberately uneven, forcing climbers to slow their pace, a physical reminder that sacred time couldn't be rushed. In Palenque, hieroglyphs along the staircases recount royal genealogies, merging history with the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. Even the act of descent held meaning. Returning to the base symbolized rebirth, completing the cycle just as the sun dies at dusk only to rise again. Modern archaeologists have noted something even more astonishing. The steps' proportions create optical illusions. When viewed from below, the staircases appear steeper and more imposing, amplifying the pyramid's grandeur. This psychological trick wasn't vanity, it was theater designed to humble visitors and reinforce the ruler's divine authority. The Maya didn't just count days, they etched time into the very stones beneath their feet, ensuring every footstep resonated with the weight of eternity. Standing before a Mayan pyramid today, its weathered limestone surface might seem monochromatic, but close your eyes and let time rewind. These structures once blazed with color, their facades painted in vivid reds, electric blues, and luminous greens so bright they'd rival modern neon signs. At sites like Calakmul, traces of original pigment still cling to sheltered crevices, offering glimpses of a lost visual spectacle. The most striking of these colors. Maya blue, a shade so vibrant and chemically mysterious, it still baffles scientists centuries later. This wasn't just decorative flair, color was sacred code. Red symbolized blood and life force, often used to highlight ceremonial spaces where rulers communed with ancestors. Green represented fertility and the jungle's bounty, while yellow echoed the sun's radiance. But Maya blue was in a league of its own. Unlike other ancient pigments that faded under tropical sun and rain, this turquoise hue clung stubbornly to plaster walls and pottery, surviving centuries of neglect. The secret lay in its recipe, a fusion of indigo plant dye and a rare clay mineral called palygorskite, heated to create an unbreakable chemical bond. The effort to produce this color reveals its importance. Palygorskite wasn't local to most Mayan cities. It was hauled from distant mines in the Yucatan-Sakhalin region, then mixed under precise temperatures. Artisans likely guarded the technique like alchemists, passing it down through generations. The resulting pigment adorned murals of gods, temple facades, and even sacrificial offerings. Researchers found traces of Maya blue coating human bones at Chichen Itza's sacred cenote, suggesting victims wore the color as a divine mantle before death. Modern spectrography uncovers even more surprises. Maya blue's molecular structure is eerily similar to modern synthetic pigments, yet it predates industrial chemistry by over a millennium. Some theories suggest the Maya discovered the formula by accident when heating incense burners lined with the clay, witnessing the transformation firsthand. Whatever its origins, the color's endurance is poetic today. When sunlight hits certain pyramids at golden hour, you can still catch flecks of that celestial blue glinting like forgotten pieces of the sky, whispering of an empire that painted its dreams in colors meant to outlast time itself. At the foot of towering Mayan pyramids, another kind of sacred theater unfolded, one that combined athleticism, ritual, and mortal stakes. The Mesoamerican ball game wasn't just a sport, it was a cosmic drama played out in stone courts, often positioned precisely between pyramids to mirror the Mayan belief in balance between earthly and divine realms. Picture a narrow alley flanked by sloped walls where players clad in padded leather gear hurled a solid rubber ball weighing up to 9 pounds using only their hips, elbows, and knees. The game's objective: keep the ball in constant motion like the celestial bodies the Maya revered, and score by driving it through stone rings mounted high on the walls. But surviving the match was only half the battle. Archaeological evidence and glyphs tell a chilling tale. For some players, the game ended in sacrifice. At Chichen Itza's great ball court, carvings depict victorious teams holding the severed heads of opponents, while reliefs at El Tajin show deities presiding over decapitations. Yet here's the twist: contrary to popular belief, it wasn't always the losers who faced the knife. Some scholars argue that the honored captives or even winning team members volunteered as offerings, believing their deaths would guarantee fertility or military victory. The ball itself held divine symbolism. Its rubber represented the sun's movement, and the court mirrored the Maya's concept of the universe, with its boundaries marking the threshold between life and the underworld. The connection to pyramids runs deeper than proximity. At Capon, the ball court aligns so precisely with the surrounding temples that the setting sun during equinoxes casts a player's shadow directly onto a pyramid staircase, merging athlete and architecture in a fleeting silhouette. This wasn't mere spectacle, it was physics as theology. The thunderous echoes of the bouncing ball, amplified by the court's acoustics, mimicked the Mayan creation myth where gods played a similar game with the bones of the first humans. Modern experiments reveal the game's brutal physicality. Replicas of the heavy ball have shattered ribs in demonstrations, proving the player's strength and endurance. Yet the Maya saw this suffering as sacred, a microcosm of their world's fragile balance, where victory and sacrifice were two sides of the same ritual coin. The pyramids loomed over these courts not as silent observers, but as active participants in a belief system where every bounce of the ball, every drop of sweat and blood, was a prayer etched in motion. While the towering pyramids of the Maya steal the spotlight, their true genius might lie hidden beneath your feet, in water channels so advanced they rival modern plumbing. At Tikal, where rainfall could drown a city in hours, engineers transformed pyramids into colossal rain catchers, weaving hydraulic magic into every terrace and stairway. The secret: a network of plaster-lined canals, underground reservoirs, and gravity-fed filters that turned downpours into a lifeline. Walk through the Great Plaza after a storm, and you'd witness pyramids doing double duty. Their sloping sides funneled rainwater into catchment basins, while hidden ducts channeled it to massive underground cisterns called choltons. These bulb-shaped chambers, some large enough to hold thousands of gallons, weren't just storage tanks, they were feats of bioengineering. The Maya layered them with quartz, sand, and zeolite, minerals that filtered impurities, creating water cleaner than what many European cities had until the 19th century. But the real marvel is scale. Tikal's system could collect over 200,000 gallons annually, enough to sustain tens of thousands through brutal dry seasons. At Palenque, aqueducts built with precise gradients kept water flowing without pumps, using relief valves to prevent pressure bursts. Even decorative fountains doubled as distribution hubs, with carved spouts regulating flow like ancient faucets. What's most astonishing, these systems weren't static. Archaeologists found evidence of adjustments, channels widened after population growth, filters upgraded as new minerals were discovered. This wasn't just survival, it was hydraulic innovation in real time. While Rome's aqueducts stretched horizontally, the Maya built vertically, stacking function atop sacred space. Their pyramids didn't just touch the sky, they harnessed its tears, turning architecture into a covenant between earth and storm. Deep in the dense jungles of Campeche, Mexico, nature plays a cruel trick on the untrained eye. What appears as mere hills blanketed in vines are actually the crumpled crowns of Calakmul's pyramids, swallowed whole by the forest over centuries. This was no ordinary city. At its peak around the 6th century, Calakmul rivaled Tikal as a superpower of the Mayan world. Its skyline dominated by two monumental pyramids known as Structures 1 and 2, each towering over 140 feet high. Yet by the time Spanish conquistadors arrived, the jungle had erased all trace of its grandeur, leaving even locals unaware of the lost metropolis beneath their feet. Modern archaeology's greatest ally, LiDAR technology, finally ripped away the green veil. By firing laser pulses from aircraft, researchers mapped the terrain beneath the canopy, revealing a sprawling urban footprint that dwarfed initial estimates. The scans exposed over 6,000 structures, temples, palaces, reservoirs, and a network of causeways connecting Calakmul to distant cities, but the most jaw-dropping discovery. The city's pyramids were merely the tip of the architectural iceberg. Beneath them lay earlier versions of themselves like Russian nesting dolls, each built atop the ruins of its predecessor, some dating back to 400 BC. Structure 2 alone contains at least 7 distinct construction phases, each corresponding to a new ruler's bid for immortality. Inside these hidden layers, archaeologists found royal tombs splashed with vibrant murals depicting courtly life, along with jade masks so intricate their inlaid obsidian pupils still seem to watch you a millennium later. The Maya didn't just build upward, they built inward, entombing their history within the pyramids themselves. What truly sets Calakmul apart is its defiance of isolation. Glyphs decoded from its stelae boast of alliances and wars spanning the Yucatan Peninsula, proving this lost city was once the heart of a vast political web. Its strategic location near vital trade routes allowed it to control the flow of jade, obsidian, and even salt commodities that fueled its rise. Yet the same jungle that devoured Calakmul also preserved it. While other Mayan sites were looted or dismantled for colonial construction, Calakmul's pyramids slept intact under layers of roots and soil, their treasures untouched. Today, climbing Structure 2 feels like stepping into an Indiana Jones fantasy. Howler monkeys scream from the canopy as you ascend steps worn smooth by time, emerging onto a summit where kings once surveyed their domain. From this vantage point, the LiDAR maps make sudden, visceral sense. The hills around you resolve into the slumped forms of lesser pyramids, while the causeways radiate outward like ghostly spokes on a wheel. Calakmul's lesson is hauntingly clear. Even the mightiest civilizations are mere tenants in the jungle's domain. But for now, the stones remember. When Spanish explorers first laid eyes on El Castillo at Chichen Itza, they assumed its smooth limestone facade was the work of a single visionary architect. What they couldn't see, what no one could see for centuries, was the truth hidden beneath their feet. In the 1930s, archaeologists made a startling discovery. The iconic pyramid wasn't one structure, but a series of architectural echoes, each layer cradling an older version of itself like a stone womb. Using ground-penetrating radar and carefully excavated tunnels, researchers uncovered an entire earlier pyramid buried within the visible one, complete with its own staircases and shrines. And that was just the beginning. Deeper still lies a third, even more ancient structure, its origins lost to the early centuries of Mayan civilization. This nesting doll design wasn't accidental. The Maya saw pyramids as living entities growing and evolving alongside their cities. When a ruler ascended to power or a new era dawned, they didn't demolish the old sacred space, they encased it, preserving its spiritual energy while adding their own chapter to the story. At Tikal's Temple of the Great Jaguar, scans reveal no fewer than 5 distinct construction phases stacked like geological strata. Each layer corresponds to a king's reign, with staircases realigned to new celestial events and facades repainted in the ruler's chosen colors. It was architecture as autobiography, with every generation writing over the past without erasing it. The reasons behind this practice reveal the Maya's profound relationship with time and divinity. By building over sacred sites, they maintained a direct link to the original consecrated ground, a place where the veil between worlds was already thin. The buried structures weren't forgotten. Their power was thought to amplify the new pyramid's spiritual potency. At Uxmal's Pyramid of the Magician, excavations uncovered earlier temples with intact altars still stained with ancient sacrificial residue, suggesting later priests may have performed rituals directly above these charged spaces to harness their lingering energy. Modern engineers marvel at the precision required for such projects. The Maya didn't simply heap rubble over old buildings. They engineered protective layers of gravel and mortar to stabilize the inner structures, then meticulously aligned new staircases to maintain celestial sightlines. At Capan, the Rosalila Temple was found entombed in near-pristine condition beneath later additions, its vibrant red paint and stucco sculptures untouched by centuries of weather. This wasn't burial, it was intentional preservation, a form of architectural time capsule meant to survive even if the outer layers crumbled. Perhaps most poignant are the personal artifacts left behind in these hidden chambers. At Edzna's Great Acropolis, workers sealing off an older pyramid included offerings of jade beads and spiny oyster shells, materials believed to carry prayers into the underworld. These weren't construction materials, they were farewell gifts to the ancestors, acknowledgements that progress required both reverence for the past and faith in what would rise above it. The Maya understood what modern cultures often forget, that true sacredness isn't built from scratch but grows from roots too deep to ever fully disappear. The feathered serpent Kukulkan didn't just slither through Mayan myths, it came alive each equinox in a breathtaking dance of light and shadow across the pyramids. At Chichen Itza's El Castillo, as the sun dipped toward the horizon during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the terraced edges of the northern staircase cast a series of triangular shadows that connected with the carved serpent heads at the pyramid's base. The result, a sinuous, undulating illusion of a giant snake slithering down from the heavens to the earth, a spectacle so precise, it could only have been engineered by astronomers who understood the sun's path down to the minute. But Kukulkan's descent wasn't just a celestial light show. To the Maya, this moment marked the gods' return to bless the land, linking the agricultural cycle with the cosmos. The serpent symbolized renewal, wisdom, and the union of earth and sky, its feathers representing the heavens while its coiled body mirrored the winding rivers that nourished crops. Priests timed planting seasons to this event, interpreting the serpent's arrival as divine permission to sow seeds. Even more remarkable, the phenomenon lasts exactly 3.5 hours, mirroring the Maya's sacred number sequences tied to creation myths. The engineering behind this illusion reveals staggering sophistication. The pyramid steps were angled at exactly 45 degrees to catch the equinox sun at the perfect moment, while the terrace's widths corresponded to the Maya's 18-month lunar calendar. Modern 3D modeling confirms that even a 1-degree deviation in alignment would disrupt the serpent's seamless formation. The Maya likely tested these proportions for generations, refining them through meticulous observation. Yet Kukulkan's influence wasn't confined to Chichen Itza. At Mayapan, a smaller pyramid replicates the same light effect, while at Cholum, coastal temples align so that the rising equinox sun frames the serpent's stone head in a halo of light. This wasn't regional artistry, it was a theological blueprint uniting distant cities under a shared celestial language. Perhaps most haunting is how the serpent's symbolism transcended the Maya. The Aztecs worshipped the same deity as Quetzalcoatl, depicting him with identical features, suggesting a cultural exchange far deeper than war or trade. Both civilizations saw the serpent not as a mere god, but as a cosmic clock, its annual descent a reminder that time itself was a sacred, slithering force. Today, as thousands gather to witness this ancient light show, they aren't just watching shadows, they're glimpsing a civilization's heartbeat, still pulsing across the stones centuries after its architects vanished into history. Step onto the stones of any major Mayan pyramid, and you're not just climbing steps, you're ascending a numerical manifesto. The Maya didn't carve random measurements, they etched their most sacred numbers into architecture with the precision of master mathematicians. Take the recurring appearance of the number 52, a digit so vital to their cosmology, it dictated the rhythm of an entire civilization. This wasn't arbitrary geometry, it was stone-coded theology. At Chichen Itza, El Castillo's 9 terraces divide the pyramid into segments mirroring the 9 levels of the underworld, but multiply these by the 4 staircases, one for each cardinal direction, and you arrive at 36. Add the single platform crowning the summit, and the total rises to 37. Now subtract this from the pyramid's original 91 steps per side, and the remaining 54 might seem random until you factor in the temple doorway as the 55th step, symbolizing completion. The math crescendos when you realize 52 of these steps align with the Mayan calendar, round the exact number of years needed for their solar and ritual calendars to synchronize. This numerical obsession wasn't limited to El Castillo. At Uxmal, the pyramid of the magician's elliptical base measures 52 Mayan units of length called tons, while its stairways contain 13 steps apiece, another sacred number representing the layers of heaven. Even the spacing between pyramids in ceremonial complexes often follows 52-unit intervals, turning entire cities into sprawling abacuses. But why this fixation on 52? To the Maya, this number marked the calendar round, a complete cycle when their 2 primary calendars, the 260-day Tzolk'in and 365-day Hob, realigned. They believed the world risked destruction at each 52-year juncture unless renewed through fire rituals. Pyramids became eternal safeguards, their dimensions embedding this temporal heartbeat into permanent stone. Modern laser scans reveal even deeper sophistication. The ratio between many pyramids' heights and bases approximates pi, not because the Maya knew the Greek constant, but because they achieved similar precision through rope measuring techniques that naturally produced circular proportions. At Palenque, the Temple of the Cross's interior chambers follow Fibonacci-like sequences, while Tikol's pyramids often incorporate multiples of 20, the base of their Videsimal counting system in their tier counts. These weren't just aesthetic choices, they were acts of devotion. When a Mayan architect laid out 52 steps, they weren't counting. They were praying in numerals, weaving eternity into the very stones beneath their sandals. Today, as sunlight traces these ancient ratios, it illuminates more than weathered limestone. It reveals a civilization that didn't just track time, but built monuments to outlast it. High above the steps of Capon's pyramids, hidden among intricate carvings of gods and kings, lies a celestial secret, a stone chronicle of eclipses so precise it rivals modern astronomy's calculations. On Temple 22, a series of glyphs doesn't just depict mythological events. It encodes the dates of past and future solar eclipses, some predicted centuries in advance. How did a civilization without telescopes or written records of Greek geometry achieve such accuracy? The answer is etched into the very alignment of the pyramids themselves. At Capon, the main stairway of structure 10 aligns with the setting sun during the winter solstice, casting a shadow that intersects with carved markers tracking the moon's nodes. the invisible points where its orbit crosses the sun's path. The Maya understood that eclipses only occur when the sun, moon, and earth align at these nodes. By meticulously recording lunar cycles over generations, their priest astronomers identified the repeating 18-year Saros cycle, allowing them to forecast eclipses with uncanny precision. One stele even documents an eclipse in 738 CE, its glyphs showing a serpent devouring the sun, a vivid metaphor for the celestial phenomenon. The true genius, however, lies in the pyramids' dual purpose. They weren't merely observatories but living calculators. At certain times of the year, sunlight filtering through strategically placed apertures in temple roofs would project a dappled pattern onto floor carvings, marking critical eclipse warning periods. The Maya didn't just predict these events, they ritualized them. Eclipses were cosmic battles, moments when the moon demon threatened to extinguish the sun god's light. Rulers timed wars and coronations around these omens, believing their bloodletting rituals could strengthen the sun's return. Modern astronomers have verified the eerie accuracy of these predictions. When researchers compared Capon's eclipse glyphs with a historical eclipse maps, the dates matched within hours. Even more astonishing, the Maya compensated for the gradual drift of the Saros cycle by adjusting their calendar, a correction European astronomers wouldn't devise until the Renaissance. Their pyramids, therefore, weren't just monuments, they were stone almanacs, frozen in time yet pulsing with the rhythms of the cosmos, a testament to eyes that looked skyward and saw not chaos, but order written in light and shadow. One of the greatest enigmas still haunting archaeologists today isn't how the Maya built their pyramids, but why they walked away from them. Between the 8th and 9th centuries, magnificent cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Capon were abruptly abandoned, their grand plazas and temples left to the jungle's slow embrace. No apocalyptic battle, no mass graves, just silent stones and unfinished carvings, as if an entire civilization had vanished mid-sentence. Theories abound, but drought emerges as the most compelling villain. Ice core samples from nearby lakes reveal a devastating megadrought during the Maya collapse, with rainfall dropping by nearly half for over a century. Imagine reservoirs like Tikal's central Acropolis, once brimming with filtered rainwater, reduced to cracked mud, crops withering in endless sun. Tree ring studies confirm this dry interval coincided precisely with the mass exodus from cities. But climate alone doesn't explain why some northern settlements like Chichen Itza thrived during this period, suggesting the truth is messier than any single factor. War may have been the spark that lit the tinderbox. In the final decades before abandonment, inscriptions shift from royal births and celestial events to grim accounts of sieges. At Dos Pilas, a stairway glyph boasts of a rival king's capture with the chilling detail. His blood pooled on the stairs. Defensive walls sprouted in once open cities, while mass graves at Cancrain tell of a ruling family slaughtered mid-feast. The Maya's once stable system of city-states may have collapsed under its own rivalries, with pyramid-top sacrifices escalating from ritual to desperate pleas for victory. Yet the most haunting theory points inward to a society buckling under its own success. Population estimates suggest classic Maya cities swelled beyond carrying capacity, with Tikal housing up to 100,000 in an area with farmland for half that number. Soil analyses show signs of catastrophic erosion from overfarming, while pollen records reveal the desperate switch to less nutritious crops like cotton as maize yields plummeted. The very pyramids that symbolized their ingenuity may have accelerated their downfall. Constructing them required vast timber for scaffolding and lime production, deforesting lands critical for water retention. But the full truth may lie in the silence between these clues. At some sites, artifacts suggest gradual departures, families taking tools and heirlooms, even sweeping floors before leaving. Others show evidence of ritual termination, with temples deliberately defaced to deactivate their spiritual power. Perhaps there was no single catastrophe, but a slow unraveling, a people who, faced with drought, war, and starvation, made the agonizing choice to disperse rather than perish. The jungle's reconquest wasn't instant. At El Zotz, archaeologists found corn kernels in post-collapse layers, hinting at small groups clinging to ruins for generations. Their descendants still live nearby today, speaking Mayan languages and preserving fragments of the old cosmology. The pyramids didn't lose their builders, they became seeds scattered to the wind, waiting for a future that would one day listen to their stones. Climbing the steps of Capon's pyramids feels like scaling a towering library, one where the books aren't made of paper but of stone. Every inch of these structures pulses with hieroglyphs, intricate carvings that weave together histories of kingship, celestial events, and mythic battles. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs, which were deciphered centuries ago, the Mayan script remained a tantalizing mystery until the late 20th century. Today, as linguists painstakingly decode these glyphs, they're uncovering narratives as dramatic as any epic poem, stories of royal intrigue, divine intervention, and even the rise and fall of dynasties etched into the very walls meant to outlast time. Take the hieroglyphic stairway at Capon, a massive flight of 63 steps adorned with over 2,000 glyph blocks. For years, it was dismissed as mere decoration until breakthroughs in translation revealed its true purpose, a dynastic chronicle stretching across 16 generations of rulers. One panel recounts the reign of King Waxaclajun Abakayawil, celebrated for his military conquests until the glyphs take a sudden dark turn, describing his capture and ritual sacrifice by a rival city. The staircase isn't just a monument, it's a stone-cold record of power's fragility, where glory and downfall share the same step. What makes these carvings even more extraordinary is their depth. They're not simple labels or dedications, but full sentences with verbs, dates, and even poetic devices. At Palink's Temple of the Inscriptions, glyphs describe the birth of King Pakal with phrases like, "The sky was set aflame," suggesting celestial omens accompanied his arrival. Other pyramids, like those at Yaxchilan, feature glyphs alongside vivid relief scenes of rulers drawing blood from their tongues to commune with ancestors, all annotated with captions that transform art into a multimedia historical record. Decoding these messages required more than linguistic skill, it demanded a cultural cipher. Early scholars assumed the glyphs were purely symbolic until Russian linguist Yuri Norizov proved in the 1950s that they represented syllables like a complex crossword puzzle. His work unlocked names, dates, and even grammatical structures. Now, with each translation, we hear voices silenced for centuries. At Dos Pilas, a glyph describes a queen's strategic marriage as the tying of the headband, a metaphor for political alliance. At Quirigá, another boasts of a victorious battle with the chilling detail. The plaza ran red with the blood of nobles, yet perhaps the most astonishing revelation is how frequently these glyphs defy our assumptions. Far from being solemn historical accounts, some contain humor, boasting, and even propaganda. One Capon panel exaggerates a king's height to superhuman proportions, while a Tikal glyph dismisses a rival ruler as the bat who screeches in the night. The Maya didn't just record history, they weaponized it, using pyramids as permanent press releases to glorify patrons and erase rivals. Today, infrared scanning and 3D modeling help archaeologists recover glyphs worn smooth by centuries of rain. Each new transcription adds another piece to the puzzle, revealing a civilization that saw writing not just as communication, but as sacred act. To carve glyphs into a pyramid was to etch words into eternity, ensuring that even when kings turned to dust, their stories would whisper across the ages. Beneath the towering pyramids of Chichen Itza, an entire hidden world pulses through the darkness, a labyrinth of underwater rivers and sacred sinkholes the Maya believed were portals to Xibalba, their treacherous underworld. The most infamous of these is the sacred cenote, a gaping natural well over 180 feet across, its deep green waters concealing layers of offerings tossed into the depths over centuries. But this wasn't just a ceremonial pit, it was a liquid crossroads between realms where life and death swirled together in the currents. Divers braving these waters have recovered artifacts that tell a chilling story: golden figurines, jade masks, and even human bones, some showing signs of ritual defleshing before their descent into the abyss. The victims weren't chosen at random. Isotopic analysis of their teeth reveals many came from distant regions like central Mexico, suggesting they were valuable captives or tributes from rival city-states. The Maya saw these sacrifices not as cruelty, but as essential transactions with the rain god Chok. During droughts, priests would lead processions to the cenote's edge, chanting as they hurled precious objects and sometimes people into the void, believing the splashes echoed upward as thunder and the offerings transformed into rain. What makes these sinkholes even more fascinating is their geology. Unlike ordinary wells, cenotes form when limestone collapses, exposing vast underground river systems that stretch for miles beneath the Yucatan Peninsula. The Maya mapped these hidden waterways with eerie accuracy, aligning pyramids like Chichen Itza's El Castillo directly above subterranean channels. Modern sonar scans confirm that the pyramid's shadow during equinoxes doesn't just trace the serpent's descent, it points precisely to the sacred cenote's location, binding celestial events to the underworld in one sacred geometry. The water itself held divine properties. Chemical analysis reveals cenotes contain high levels of dissolved gypsum, giving them an otherworldly blue hue the Maya associated with the purity of the gods. During rituals, priests would fill ceremonial vessels from these wells, believing the water carried messages to ancestors. Even today, local shamans whisper that on quiet nights, you can hear voices rising from the depths, echoes of the countless prayers swallowed by the cenote's unblinking mouth. Yet the most spine-tingling discovery came in 2018, when archaeologists using advanced submersibles discovered a hidden chamber beneath the sacred cenote's floor, its walls lined with undisturbed offerings, spearheads arranged in star patterns, obsidian mirrors for scrying the future, and a trove of cocoa beans, the currency of the elite. This wasn't random disposal, it was deliberate placement, a submerged reliquary meant to endure long after the pyramids above crumbled. The Maya understood what modern science confirms: cenotes are time capsules, their oxygen-deprived depths preserving organic material for millennia. Every ripple in these dark waters carries a whisper of the past, a reminder that the Maya didn't just fear the underworld. They courted it, bargained with it, and in doing so, left behind a legacy far more enduring than stone. To stand at the edge of the sacred cenote isn't just to peer into water. It's to stare into the mirror of a civilization that saw the divine not in the distant heavens, but in the liquid darkness beneath their feet. At Yaxchilan, a once mighty Mayan city now cloaked in emerald vines, the jungle is taking back what was stolen from it, stone by painstaking stone. The very roots that once nourished this civilization now twist through temple walls like silent assassins, prying apart limestone blocks that have stood for over 1,000 years. It's a slow-motion battle between nature and legacy, where ceiba trees sink their roots into pyramid staircases, splitting them with the force of living hydraulics, while strangler figs coil around carved stelae, their grip tightening with each passing monsoon. For archaeologists, this isn't just decay, it's a crisis unfolding in real time. At Structure 33, a pyramid famed for its ornate lintels depicting warrior kings, a single kapok tree's roots have dislodged an entire corner of the building, sending sections of intricate carvings tumbling into the undergrowth. What took the Maya generations to build could vanish within decades unless intervention comes. But here's the cruel irony: removing the vegetation could be even more destructive. Roots now act as living scaffolding, holding fractured stones in place like arboreal band-aids. Yank them out, and entire facades might collapse. Conservation teams are deploying ingenious strategies to fight back. At El Castillo in Yaxchilan, botanists carefully prune invasive roots by hand, leaving key support systems intact while injecting eco-friendly herbicides to stunt regrowth. Drones map damage invisible from the ground, revealing where underground root networks threaten foundations. Some efforts verge on the poetic. Workers transplant young away from fragile walls, guiding their growth with biodegradable ropes like gardeners training a bonsai, except these plants weigh thousands of tons. The race against time reveals uncomfortable truths. Modern climate change accelerates the damage as heavier rains soften mortar faster than ever, while rising temperatures invite new invasive species. Even tourism plays a role. The moisture from countless breaths in sealed tomb chambers fosters destructive molds, but perhaps the most haunting lesson lies in the Mayas' own foresight. They built with an intimate knowledge of the jungle's power, using lime plasters that resisted water and angling walls to shed vines. Their craftsmanship survived 8 centuries of neglect, only to falter now under pressures they couldn't have imagined. Standing deep in Yaxchilan's overgrown plazas, you can hear the creak of roots flexing against stone, a sound like bones settling in a grave. It's a reminder that all civilizations, no matter how grand, are ultimately tenants on borrowed land. The jungle isn't destroying these pyramids, it's simply reclaiming its own. And in that relentless green embrace, there's a strange beauty. The Maya revered nature as divine, and now their sacred structures are becoming one with the very force they worshipped. Beneath Palenque's Temple of the Inscriptions, the tomb of Pakal the Great isn't just a burial chamber, it's a time capsule of Mayan royalty, frozen in jade and stone. When archaeologists first breached the hidden staircase in 1952, they found the king's sarcophagus sealed under a 20-ton slab, its surface carved with an intricate cosmic map showing Pakal's descent into the underworld. But the real marvel lay inside. His skeletal remains adorned with a mosaic jade mask so lifelike, its obsidian pupils still seemed to watch the living a millennium later. The mask wasn't mere decoration. Each piece of jade symbolized a fragment of his soul, painstakingly arranged to ensure his smooth passage to immortality. The treasures surrounding Pakal tell an even richer story. Nestled beside him were jade ear flares the size of walnuts, their delicate carvings depicting the storm god Chok, and a belt of jade beads strung with carved shells, a royal accessory meant to announce his divinity in the afterlife. Nearby, ceramic vessels held traces of cocoa, tamales, and even hallucinogenic substances, offerings meant to sustain him on his journey. The walls themselves whispered secrets, covered in stucco reliefs of Pakal's ancestors emerging from serpent mouths, their breath forming the very air of the underworld. This wasn't just a tomb, it was a curated afterlife, a king's final court assembled for eternity. What makes Pakal's burial extraordinary isn't just its opulence, it's the precision of its prophecy. Glyphs on the sarcophagus lid record his death in 683 CE, but they also recount his mythical rebirth as the maize god, timed to coincide with a celestial alignment. Modern astronomers confirmed that on the exact date inscribed, Venus hung in a position the Maya associated with resurrection. The pyramid, therefore, wasn't merely a grave, it was a celestial launch pad, engineered to sync Pakal's spiritual ascent with the heavens' rhythm. Yet Pakal's tomb is just one thread in a larger tapestry. At Tukul's Temple of the Great Jaguar, the tomb of King Jasor Chan Kayawil rivals Palenque's splendor. Excavators found his remains draped in jade pectorals shaped like the sun god, while stingray spines tools for bloodletting rituals lay nearby, their edges still sharp enough to pierce skin. In Kapon, the tomb of King Yak's Passage boasts a macabre detail. The skeletons of 15 sacrificed attendants arranged in a circle around his sarcophagus, their bones stained with sacred red cinnabar. These burials shatter old assumptions that pyramids were solely temples or observatories. They were multidimensional spaces where death and divinity intertwined, where kings became gods through carefully staged theatrics. The Maya didn't hide their dead underground, they elevated them, quite literally. placing them at the summit of pyramids so their spirits might climb the stairways of sunlight to join the stars. Every jade bead, every carved glyph was a rung on that celestial ladder. Today, laser scans reveal even grander secrets. Hidden chambers beneath Pakal's tomb may hold the remains of his queens, while undiscovered passages snake toward Palink's central plaza, suggesting pyramids were nodes in a sprawling necropolis. The stones hum with unread glyphs, their stories waiting for the next generation of explorers to dust them off and listen. Buried beneath the limestone steps of Tikal's pyramids, archaeologists have unearthed treasure troves that tell stories far richer than gold or jewels, everyday items frozen in time. Imagine opening a vault sealed for 12 centuries to find not just ceremonial relics, but cacao beans still fragrant with chocolate's earthy sweetness, spiny oyster shells from distant coasts, and jade beads strung with fibers that once brushed against royal skin. These weren't just offerings to gods, they were snapshots of a civilization's heartbeat, preserving the tastes, trades, and textures of daily life. Take the humble cacao bean, discovered in ceramic vessels beneath Kapon's pyramids. To the Maya, chocolate was currency literally. Beans served as coins for market transactions, while frothy cocoa drinks flavored with chili and vanilla were the champagne of royal feasts. But when placed in tombs, these beans took on divine significance. Residue analyzers reveal some vessels held fermented chocolate, possibly for the deceased to enjoy in the afterlife. Others contained beans arranged in precise counts matching sacred calendar numbers, transforming pantry staples into celestial math. Then there's the jade, not the sculpted masks of kings, but the raw, unworked nuggets tucked beside them. Sourcing these stones through chemical fingerprinting has rewritten maps of Mayan commerce. The vibrant green jade in Palink's tombs, it came from Guatemala's Motagua Valley, over 300 miles away, transported without pack animals or wheels. Even more telling are the dead offerings, obsidian blades snapped ritually, pottery vessels pierced with holes intentionally killed to release their spiritual essence for the underworld journey. But perhaps the most intimate finds are the textiles. In the dry recesses of some pyramids, traces of cotton cloth dyed with indigo and cochineal insects survived, their weave patterns echoing modern Guatemalan huipiles. These fabrics whisper of hands that spun them, looms that shaped them, and bodies that wore them long before they were folded into eternity. The true revelation lies in the ordinary alongside the opulent. At El Peru Waka, excavators found a ruler's tomb containing not just jade, but also stingray spines for bloodletting, still flecked with his royal blood, and a dog's skeleton wearing a copper bell collar. This wasn't just a burial, it was a cross-section of an entire world where luxury and mundanity coexisted in sacred space. Modern technology peels back even deeper layers. Spectrometry on pyramid-offered pottery detects traces of ancient tamales, while pollen clinging to ceremonial blades reveals bouquets of marigolds and sage placed with the dead. Each artifact is a thread in a vast economic and spiritual web, proving the Maya didn't just build pyramids to touch the sky, they filled them with the very essence of their earthly existence, ensuring nothing, not even time, could unravel their story. In the heart of the Yucatan's emerald wilderness lies Etzna, a Mayan city where pyramids didn't just rise from the earth, they floated. Here, engineers transformed the landscape into a liquid mirror, threading temples with canals so precise they turned stone into islands and water into sacred geometry. This wasn't mere urban planning, it was alchemy where earth and sky merged in reflections so flawless the heavens seemed to ripple at humanity's feet. The grandest of these aquatic marvels is the Temple of the Five Stories, its terraced facade rising from a network of reservoirs and channels that doubled as celestial maps. During the rainy season, these canals swelled to encircle the pyramid's base, creating the illusion that the structure hovered above its own shimmering twin. But the Maya weren't just chasing beauty, they were encoding cosmology. The main canal aligned with the setting sun on the summer solstice, casting a golden path across the water that mirrored the Milky Way's white road in Mayan mythology. At dusk, priests would glide along these channels in ceremonial canoes, their paddles stirring stars into the liquid sky. Etzna's hydraulics reveal staggering sophistication. Unlike Venice's haphazard canals, these waterways followed calculated gradients, with sluice gates and spillways regulating flow to prevent flooding during torrential rains. Some channels fed into hidden cisterns beneath plazas, while others directed water to irrigate vast raised agricultural fields called chinampas. The entire system functioned like a hydraulic clock with seasonal rains, winding the mechanism that sustained the city. What's truly astonishing is how these canals served dual purposes. Beyond practical irrigation and flood control, they were ritual pathways. Excavations have uncovered jade ornaments and ceramic effigies of the rain god Chok, deliberately placed in canal beds offerings to keep the waters fertile and aligned with cosmic forces. Even the pyramid staircase played its part. Its shadow during equinoxes stretched across the water to intersect with a carved stela, marking the dates for planting and harvest. Modern lidar scans expose Etzna's full genius. The canals weren't random. They formed a giant quadripartite design mirroring the Mayan universe's 4 directions, with the pyramid as the axis mundi. This wasn't just a city, it was a living mandala where every drop of water echoed divine order. Today, when the rains return and the canals refill, Etzna's pyramids still rise from the flood just as their builders intended, not as conquerors of nature but as partners in its endless sacred dance. The towering pyramids of the Maya weren't just monuments to male kings, they also enshrined the legacies of warrior queens who wielded power as fiercely as any man. Among these formidable women, Lady Kayable of El Peruwaka stands tallest. Discovered beneath a pyramid in 2012, her tomb contained relics that rewrote history. A jade and shell pendant etched with a royal title, Kalumt Supreme Warrior, a military rank higher than her husband's. Her burial mask, carved from white limestone, shows her gazing defiantly into eternity, her brow furrowed not in submission but in command. The bones themselves told a story, where patterns on her hips suggested a lifetime spent astride litters or war canoes, ruling a city-state embroiled in constant conflict. This wasn't an isolated case. At Palenque, the Red Queen, named for the crimson cinnabar that coated her tomb, was buried with a treasure trove of jade and obsidian worthy of any king. DNA analysis revealed she was likely Lady Tiziakbu Ajor, wife of Pakal the Great, but her burial in Temple 13 rivaled his in splendor. Her sarcophagus held a malachite mask so intricate, its delicate cheekbones seemed to breathe beneath the green stone, while spondylus shells from distant Pacific reefs lined her crypt, proof of a trade network she may have overseen. Glyphs nearby depict her presiding over rituals, wielding bloodletting tools with the same authority as male counterparts. Then there's Lady Six Sky of Naranjo, a diplomat queen who marched armies across the Patain to install her son on a rival throne. Stelae show her clutching a scepter shaped like the god of war, her foot resting on the backs of captives. At Yaxchilan, Lady Kayable Zook's pyramid inscriptions recount her conducting visionary rites, pulling thorned ropes through her tongue to summon gods, a privilege rarely granted to women in other ancient cultures. These weren't symbolic figureheads, they signed treaties, led troops, and etched their deeds into stone with the same permanence as kings. What makes their pyramids even more remarkable is how they subverted tradition. While male rulers often built over older structures, queens like Kayable commissioned entirely new monuments, as if declaring their reigns couldn't be contained by the past. At Kaaba, the tomb of a yet unnamed female ruler contains an offering unseen in kings' burials. Dozens of ceramic figurines depicting women weaving, grinding maize, and nursing children. A silent rebuke to the notion that power and domesticity were opposites. Modern laser scans reveal even more hidden stories. Beneath the pyramid of Lady Yol Iknal at Palenque, archaeologists found a sealed chamber with glyphs describing her defense of the city against Calakmul's armies, her strategic genius turning certain defeat into a 20-year reign. The Maya didn't just tolerate female rulers, they celebrated them in stone and jade, their pyramids standing as eternal proof that leadership wasn't bound by gender, only by the strength to hold the sky and earth together, one bloody sacrifice at a time. Hidden deep within the pyramids of Palenque and Teotihuacan, archaeologists have uncovered objects that seem ripped from the pages of fantasy. Discs of volcanic glass polished to a mirror finish so flawless, they still reflect faces after 1,000 years. These weren't decorative trinkets or vanity items, they were portals. To the Maya, obsidian mirrors were sacred windows to other realms, tools for shamans and rulers to peer beyond the veil of time and space. The craftsmanship alone boggles the mind. Artisans selected only the purest obsidian volcanic glass formed in the fires of the earth, then spent months grinding it with quartz sand and water until the surface became as smooth as still water. The resulting mirrors, some as wide as dinner plates, could reflect images with eerie clarity, a technological marvel in a world without glass, but their true power lay in how the Maya used them. Glyphs and codices depict priests clutching these mirrors during ceremonies, their surfaces catching torchlight to create disorienting flashes that induced trance states. Some mirrors were even mounted on ornate handles shaped like serpents or ancestors, suggesting they were passed down through generations like royal scepters. What did the Maya see in these Inkai reflections? Divination was only the beginning. Texts describe rulers like Pakal, the great consulting mirrors before battles, interpreting swirls in the glass as messages from gods or ancestors. At dusk, priests would angle mirrors to catch the first stars, believing celestial patterns revealed in the obsidian held prophecies. The most chilling accounts come from Spanish chroniclers, who wrote of captured Mayan nobles claiming their mirrors could show distant events in real time, like some pre-Columbian surveillance system. Modern experiments shed light on these claims. When researchers recreated Mayan mirror rituals in low light, they discovered something astonishing. The obsidian's slight curvature distorts reflections just enough to create subtle movement in the image, as if the surface breathed. Combine this with rhythmic chanting or hallucinogens, and the effect becomes potent enough to convince even skeptics they're witnessing visions. Some mirrors also contain microscopic magnetite crystals, minerals sensitive to Earth's magnetic field, leading theorists to suggest the Maya may have used them as primitive compasses during celestial observations. But the mirrors' most haunting legacy lies in their duality. While they served as spiritual tools, they were also weapons of psychological warfare. Enemy accounts describe Mayan generals holding up mirrors before battle, reflecting sunlight into opponents' eyes while shouting that the gods themselves watched through the glass. At Chichen Itza, a cache of shattered mirrors found near sacrificial altars hints at a darker ritual killing of the objects to release trapped spirits or sever connections to the underworld. Today, when you stand before these mirrors in museum cases, resist the urge to see them as mere artifacts. Lean closer, and the obsidian still holds a charge, not just of sorcery or superstition, but of a civilization that believed reality was layered like an onion, and with the right tools you could peel it back. The Maya didn't just gaze into these mirrors, they stepped through them, chasing truths we're only beginning to imagine. Walk through the ruined plazas of Uxmal at dusk, and you'll notice something strange. The pyramids aren't scattered randomly across the landscape. They're arranged in precise clusters, their positions mirroring the stars of constellations sacred to the Maya. This isn't poetic coincidence, it's celestial cartography etched into limestone. The governor's palace aligns with Venus at its southernmost rise, while the pyramid of the magician's odd elliptical base traces the Pleiades' path across the night sky. These buildings weren't just monuments, they were terrestrial star maps binding earthly kingdoms to the cosmos above. The evidence is carved in stone, literally. At Uxmal's nunnery quadrangle, glyphs depict rulers holding celestial cords that stretch from their thrones to star glyphs overhead, physically tethering their legitimacy to heavenly bodies. Nearby, the House of the Turtles isn't named for whimsy. Its rooftop sculptures mark the position of Orion's belt during winter solstice ceremonies. Archaeologists using 3D modeling software have confirmed what the Maya always knew. Entire city plans were scaled replicas of constellations, with causeways acting as cosmic highways connecting star-aligned temples. Why this obsessive celestial mimicry? For the Maya, stars weren't distant lights, they were ancestral deities and divine timekeepers. When a king built his palace beneath a pyramid representing Venus, he wasn't just flaunting power, he was claiming direct descent from the morning star itself. The ruins of Chaltane reveal even deeper layers there. The Temple of the Seven Dolls doorways frame the equinox sunrise, while its 7 interior statues correspond to the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. Each alignment served dual purposes: practical agricultural calendars and theatrical demonstrations of a ruler's ability to commune with the heavens. Modern astronomers have identified at least 18 Mayan cities following this pattern, from Capon's mirrored Orion layout to Palink's buildings echoing the Gemini twins. But Uxmal's genius lies in its nuance. The city's main axis points toward the setting sun on August 13th, the date marking the start of the Maya's sacred calendar cycle. At that exact moment, shadows from the governor's palace staircase transform into a segmented serpent, slithering toward Venus's celestial position. This wasn't just observation, it was celestial choreography where architecture, light, and planetary motion performed in perfect sync. The implications rewrite our understanding of urban planning. While medieval European cities huddled around castles for protection, Mayan metropolises were open-air planetariums, their streets and temples calibrated to celestial rhythms. Even warfare followed the stars' inscriptions describe kings timing attacks to Venus's phases, believing its position amplified their army's strength. Today, as laser scans reveal hidden star maps beneath plaza stones and infrared photography uncovers faded constellation murals, we're left with a humbling truth. The Maya didn't just worship the sky, they built a mirror to hold its infinite reflections. Beneath the vibrant murals and gilded treasures of Mayan pyramids lies a hidden danger walls painted with poisonous cinnabar, their scarlet surfaces shimmering with deadly intent. This wasn't mere decoration, it was a lethal safeguard, a barrier between the living and secrets meant to stay buried. Archaeologists exploring Palink's subterranean chambers made a chilling discovery: pools of liquid mercury beneath Pakal the Great's tomb, their silver surface still rippling slightly when disturbed after 13 centuries. Combined with cinnabar-dusted floors and walls, these toxic defenses created an environment where tomb robbers would face dizziness, madness, or worse with every breath. The Maya understood cinnabar's power long before modern science confirmed its dangers. This mercuric sulfide pigment, mined from volcanic veins, produced a vibrant red hue symbolic of blood and life force, but grinding it released toxic dust that could seep through skin or lungs. At Capon's Rosalilla temple, traces of cinnabar paint still cling to carvings in concentrations high enough to cause tremors or kidney failure in those who lingered too long. Yet the Maya didn't just stumble into this hazard, they weaponized it. Glyphs at Tonana describe how priests anointed sacrificial blades with cinnabar paste, ensuring even superficial wounds became fatal. The poison wasn't a flaw, it was a feature, transforming sacred spaces into biocontainment chambers where only the ritually prepared could tread safely. Mercury's role was even more enigmatic. The liquid metal found in sealed cavities beneath several pyramids served purposes both practical and mystical. At Teotihuacan, a city deeply connected to Mayan trade networks, researchers uncovered over 100 pounds of mercury beneath the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent, pooled in channels that may have represented underworld rivers. When stirred, the mercury's swirling surface could mimic constellations or hallucinogenic visions, likely used by priests during trance rituals. But there's a darker theory. Spanish accounts describe mercury vapors inducing delirium in those who entered sealed tombs, symptoms matching modern mercury poisoning. The Maya may have engineered these toxic traps knowing trespassers would suffer ghostly visions or convulsions, punishment for disturbing the dead. What makes these defenses especially ingenious is their duality. Cinnabar and mercury weren't just threats, they were sacred substances. The Maya associated mercurys Chinese letter with the boundary between worlds, while cinnabar's blood-like color linked it to rebirth. In controlled doses, priests may have used them to induce altered states, walking the knife's edge between transcendence and death. At Calakmul, a ruler's skeleton was found dusted head to toe in cinnabar, his bones stained crimson, a deliberate merger of poison and eternity. Modern hazmat suits now shield archaeologists from these ancient perils, but the sophistication still astonishes. The Maya didn't just fear tomb robbers, they weaponized chemistry itself, blending art, ritual, and toxicology into a defense system that outlasted their civilization. These pyramids didn't just guard gold or jade, they protected knowledge too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands, ensuring that even in ruin, their secrets kept their bite. High on the steps of Uxmal's Pyramid of the Magician, a simple clap triggers something extraordinary. The stones themselves seem to weep. When hands meet in the humid air, the echo doesn't bounce back as a dull thud. Instead, it fractures into 100 tiny reverberations, cascading like raindrops striking a limestone forest floor. This isn't architectural coincidence, it's sonic sorcery, a deliberate acoustic illusion crafted to honor Chok, the hook-nosed rain god whose benevolence meant the difference between feast and famine. The science behind this phenomenon is as precise as it is poetic. Each step's unique angle and width acts like a tiny soundboard, slicing the initial clap into staggered micro-echoes that reach the ear milliseconds apart. Modern audio analysis reveals these delays fall between 50 and 100 milliseconds, the exact interval that makes a rapid series of sounds register as fluid continuity, just like real rainfall. Even more astonishing, the effect intensifies during Uxmal's rainy season, when humidity softens the stone slightly, altering its resonance to mimic the heavier downpours of June. But the Maya didn't stop at mere mimicry. Glyphs near the pyramid's base depict musicians performing rain-calling ceremonies, their hands raised toward the steps as if conducting an invisible storm. Archaeologists have found ceramic whistles shaped like Chok's face buried beneath the staircase, their interior chambers tuned to specific frequencies that harmonize with the pyramid's echoes. When blown during rituals, these instruments would have blended with the clapping echoes, creating a layered symphony of artificial and architectural rain, a sensory hallucination so convincing, worshippers might have felt phantom droplets on their skin. The pyramid's rain magic extends beyond sound. Its unusual elliptical shape, rare in Mayan architecture, channels wind into a low hum during thunderstorms, while strategically placed drainage holes transform gushing runoff into rhythmic percussion. During particularly violent tempests, eyewitnesses report the entire structure seems to sing, with water rushing through hidden channels to produce deep, guttural tones reminiscent of thunder. What modern engineers find most impressive is the intentional imperfection in this design. Unlike the mathematically pure acoustics of European cathedrals, Uxmal's steps incorporate subtle asymmetries, a deliberate choice to emulate rain's natural randomness. Laser scans show some treads were shaved down millimeter by millimeter until they produced the desired irregular pattern, proving the Maya valued emotional authenticity over sterile precision. Today, as tourists clap hesitantly at the pyramid's base, they're participating in a ritual far older than they realize. Every recreated rainfall is an echo of priests who once climbed these very steps during droughts, their sandals scuffing the stone as they prayed not to statues or idols, but to architecture itself, a sacred instrument built to blur the line between human plea and divine response. In Uxmal's reigning staircase, stone isn't just material. It's a language, one that still whispers its watery secrets to those who know how to listen. Climb the steps of any great Mayan pyramid, and you'll find yourself face to face with silent stone sentinels, jaguars frozen mid-snarl, bats with wings outstretched like living shadows, serpents coiled around temple doorways as if poised to strike. These weren't mere decorations, they were guardians of the threshold, each creature chosen for its power to bridge the mortal world and the unseen. Take Ekbalam's Acropolis, where a colossal jaguar mouth frames the entrance, its teeth serving as steps that literally force visitors to walk into the beast's maw. This wasn't just artistry, it was psychological theater, a visceral reminder that crossing into sacred space meant surrendering to forces far older and wilder than oneself. The jaguar held singular significance, its spots mirroring the starry sky in Mayan cosmology, its nocturnal prowess linking it to the sun's nightly journey through the underworld. At Chichen Itza's Temple of the Jaguar, reliefs show the big cat not as a predator, but as a celestial ferryman carrying the sun god on its back between realms. Some carvings depict jaguars with hallucinogenic vines sprouting from their bodies, symbolizing their role as spirit guides for shamans navigating trance states. Even their growls were thought to echo in the pyramid's acoustics. Modern tests at Paylink show that certain chambers amplify deep vocal tones into rumbles eerily reminiscent of big cats. Bats, often feared in other cultures, were revered as psychopomps, creatures who shepherded souls through Xibalba's labyrinthine caverns. At Capon, a pyramid's inner sanctum houses a chilling relief of Camazotz, the death bat god, his stone wings forming an arch over an altar where rulers performed bloodletting rites. The Maya observed real bats' uncanny navigation in darkness, believing they could teach humans to see in the spiritual void. Glyphs at Yaxchilan recount how nobles wore bat pectorals during vision quests, the weight of the jewelry mimicking the creature's grip to inspire its guidance. Then there were the serpents, not just Kukulkan's feathered incarnation, but venomous vipers carved with fangs bared at pyramid corners. These weren't threats, they were protectors. At Tonana, a doorway flanked by twin rattlesnakes vibrates when wind passes through hidden channels, producing a sound like shaking tails, a sonic warning system for sacred spaces. Other sites feature snakes swallowing their own tails, forming loops around stelae to magically seal historical records from tampering. The genius lies in how these animals weren't static symbols. At certain times of day, sunlight transforms them into something alive. At El Mirador, dawn light slants through a bat carving's wing perforations, projecting fluttering shadow patterns that creep across the plaza like a spectral swarm. During solstices at Dizibulchaltun, a serpent's shadow uncoils down a staircase exactly as its stone counterpart climbs the balustrade, an eternal chase frozen in architecture. The Maya didn't just carve animals, they encoded their very essence into stone, ensuring the boundaries between worlds remained guarded by teeth, claws, and wings that never slept. Beneath the sacred chambers of Mayan pyramids, among jade masks and golden effigies, archaeologists have uncovered treasure chests holding neither gemstones nor gold, but humble cacao beans. To modern eyes, these wrinkled brown seeds might seem unremarkable, but in the Mayan world, they were beyond precious. They were literal currency, as valuable as coins and as sacred as temple incense. A single bean could buy a ripe tomato, 100 might purchase a slave, and a ruler's vault might hold thousands, stored in pyramid crypts like Fort Knox for chocolate. The Maya didn't just trade cacao, they revered it. Glyphs depict gods sprouting cacao pods from their bodies, while royal tombs brim with ornate drinking vessels stained with ancient cocoa residue. But why this obsession? The answer lies in the bean's dual nature. As money, cacao was lightweight, durable, and nearly impossible to counterfeit. each bean's unique ridges serving as a natural anti-fraud measure. As ritual offerings, they symbolized life itself, their bitter pulp fermented into frothy drinks served at coronations, their shells crushed into pathways to cushion the feet of kings. At Tikol's pyramid complex, excavations revealed ceramic urns filled not with human remains, but neatly stacked cacao beans, some dyed blue to mimic the sacred hue of sacrifice. These weren't casual stashes, they were central banks of the Mayan economy. Spanish chroniclers later wrote of marketplaces where rabbits sold for 10 beans and a good blanket for 100. But the true power of cacao emerged in diplomacy. When Capon's king sought an alliance with a rival city, records show he sent 10,000 beans alongside jade, a gesture blending commerce and sacred trust. The beans even shaped warfare. Glyphs at Bonampak depict conquered warriors paying tributes in woven bags bulging with cacao, their worth calculated down to the last pod. Yet the darkest twist lies in counterfeiters' fates. At El Mirador, archaeologists found the skeleton of a man buried beneath a pyramid steps, his hands severed, likely punishment for passing hollowed-out beans filled with mud. Today, chemical analysis reveals even deeper secrets. Residue on palace pottery shows nobles drank their chocolate spiced with chili and vanilla, while commoners got diluted versions. Some pyramid-offered beans show tooth marks, possibly ritual bites to prove authenticity. And in a haunting echo of modern finance, researchers found beans stored in royal vaults were larger and glossier than average, a form of ancient quality control. Cacao's legacy outlasted the pyramids. When Spanish conquistadors seized Mayan cities, they initially dismissed the beans as Indian money, until realizing their worth and adopting the system themselves. For centuries, cacao remained legal tender in parts of Mexico. Now, when you unwrap a chocolate bar, you're holding the descendant of a currency that once built kingdoms, bought lives, and pleased gods, one tiny, transformative seed at a time. Deep within the layered soils of Mayan pyramids, a silent record of catastrophe lies preserved, not carved in stone but etched into the very earth these structures stand upon. Core samples drilled from temple foundations reveal alternating bands of rich, dark soil and brittle, past dust, a geological memoir of boom and bust written across centuries. In the shadow of Tikol's towering temples, scientists uncovered a particularly telling stratum, a thin layer of volcanic ash from a distant eruption, sandwiched between dense organic matter, and then, abruptly, a bone-dry deposit devoid of pollen or roots. This stark transition marks more than just a bad season. It captures the exact moment the rains failed year after year, until even the mightiest cities gasped under unrelenting drought. The proof is in the pollen. Analysis of these soil layers shows a dramatic shift. Around the 9th century. Mahogany and ceiba tree pollen vanishes, replaced by hardy desert plants like agave. Worse still, the remains of maize, the lifeblood of Mayan civilization, dwindled to near invisibility in later strata. At Capon, sediment cores tell a grisly footnote. A sudden spike in charcoal particles coincides with glyphs describing fire in the fields, evidence of desperate farmers burning forests to create new farmland as old soils turned to dust. Even pyramid construction itself faltered. Plaster layers in Palenque's temples transition from smooth, refined finishes to lumpy, hastily applied patches, the architectural equivalent of a civilization rationing its last reserves. But the most haunting clues emerge from what's missing. In the final construction phases of Calakmul's Great Pyramid, workers stopped adding the usual ceremonial deposits. No jade beads, no stingray spines, just bare limestone and mud. This absence speaks louder than any artifact. As resources vanished, so did the luxury of ritual. Isotopes in human bones from this period confirm the horror. Nitrogen levels indicating protein intake plummet, while stress lines in teeth multiply like tree rings during a drought. Yet these layers also hold fleeting signs of resilience. At El Zotz, thin bands of renewed soil contain squash and bean pollen crops requiring less water than maize, showing farmers adapting until the very end. Some pyramids even bear the scars of emergency modifications. Uxmal's rainwater drainage systems were hastily expanded in their final years, their channels gouged deeper as if clawing for every drop. The soil doesn't just record collapse, it chronicles ingenuity in the face of doom, a civilization rewriting its survival playbook until the pages ran out. Modern laser scans add a tragic twist. Beneath the drought strata in many pyramids lie networks of ancient cenotes underground water, sources the Maya once tapped through sacred sinkholes. As the rains failed, these reserves turned saline from overuse, their life-giving waters poisoned by the very hands that depended on them. The pyramids, in their layered soils, now stand as both monuments and tombstones, their foundations quite literally built on the shifting line between abundance and oblivion. For centuries, the Mayan pyramids slumbered beneath a green shroud, their stories silenced by vines and time until two men armed with sketchbooks and sheer determination ripped away the jungle's veil. In 1839, American diplomat John Lloyd Stevens and British artist Frederick Catherwood hacked through the Patane's suffocating wilderness, guided only by vague rumors of stone houses hidden in the foliage. What they found would ignite a global fascination. Palink's temples rising like shattered teeth from the undergrowth, Kapon's hieroglyphic stairway choked in roots, and Uxmal's geometric facades half swallowed by strangler figs. Catherwood's illustrations, rendered with architect's precision, transformed these ruins from local curiosities into sensations. His delicate ink lines capturing details even modern cameras struggle to isolate, the way dawn light catches the curve of a stucco mask or the precise angle of a shadow across a sacrificial altar. Their expedition journals read like adventure novels crossed with archaeological manifestos. Stevens recounts nights spent sleeping atop pyramids, jaguars growling in the dark, while Catherwood battled swarms of mosquitoes to complete his drawings by lantern light. Every discovery came at a cost. At Kapon, they bribed a landowner to halt the destruction of stelae being quarried for building stone. At Chichen Itza, they arrived just as looters dynamited a temple chamber for its jade. Yet what makes their work revolutionary wasn't just bravery, it was perspective. While contemporaries dismissed the ruins as remnants of lost tribes or even Atlantis, Stevens declared them unequivocally Mayan, linking living indigenous communities to these stone marvels for the first time. Catherwood's artistry proved equally groundbreaking. His cross-section sketches of El Castillo revealed the pyramid within, a pyramid phenomenon decades before ground-penetrating radar, while his renderings of glyphs provided the first clear templates for future decipherment. Their two-volume book, Incidents of Travel in Central America, became a 19th-century bestseller. Though it nearly bankrupted them, the exquisite lithographs cost a fortune to print. The legacy of their obsession still shapes archaeology today. At Tikal, modern conservators use Catherwood's drawings to locate sculptures displaced by looters, while Stevens' descriptions of overgrown plazas help ecologists study how the jungle reclaims stone. Most poignantly, their work forced Europe to confront a truth it had long denied, that indigenous civilizations could produce architecture rivaling Greece or Egypt. When Catherwood's panorama of Palink toured London in 1841, visitors gasped at its scale, struggling to reconcile these wonders with racist stereotypes of primitive peoples. Yet the duo's final act holds unexpected poetry. After years of jungle fevers and financial ruin, Catherwood died at sea when his ship sank en route to California, while Stevens succumbed to malaria at 47. But their ghosts linger in every digital scan of a pyramid's hidden chamber, every tourist's awe-struck gaze at a stela they first dragged into the light. The jungle may have taken them, but not before they gifted the world its stolen history, one sketch, one glyph, one crumbling staircase at a time. From the towering heights of El Mirador to the echoing chambers of Palink, these pyramids are far more than ancient ruins. They're a testament to a civilization that fused art, science, and spirituality into stone. Think about it. The Maya encoded celestial cycles into staircases, turned pyramids into acoustic instruments that mimic jungle birds, and engineered hydraulic systems beneath temples that rival modern plumbing. They painted their sacred structures in colors so vivid they still shimmer after centuries, and carved guardians into the stone so lifelike they seem to breathe. These weren't just builders, they were mathematicians tracking eclipses with pinpoint precision, artists weaving myth into mortar, and visionaries who saw no divide between the earthly and the divine. Consider the sheer range of what we've uncovered. Pyramids that predict solstices, tombs laced with poisons to deter thieves, ball courts where the stakes were life and death, and queens who ruled as fiercely as kings. The Maya didn't just observe the stars, they built cities to mirror constellations, turning entire landscapes into celestial maps. They transformed cenotes into portals to the underworld and crafted obsidian mirrors that may have served as portals to other realms. Even their collapse whispers lessons, with soil layers revealing droughts so severe they turned reservoirs to dust. So which fact left you speechless? Was it the echoing staircases that sing like rainfall, the hidden chambers stacked like Russian dolls, or the revelation that chocolate was literally currency? Drop a comment below. We're dying to know what amazed you most, and if these mysteries lit a fire in your curiosity, don't stop here. Book a trip to walk these sacred grounds yourself, or dive into the research that's still rewriting history. The Maya left us puzzles carved in stone, and every new discovery peels back another layer. Want more journeys into the past? Hit subscribe and join us as we unravel the next historical enigma. From lost cities to buried treasures, the world's secrets are waiting, and trust us, the best ones are still untold.